If you're doing the beard for Gnome is where you hang your hat, or the little spiral sprouts for the seedling droplet pattern, you may be wondering how exactly to go about this technique. So I have cast on using the cable cast on method, which looks like this. I go between the two stitches that are leftmost on the needle here, not through the stitch, but between the two stitches themselves. I make a loop on my right needle tip and I put it up and over on the left. So that's the cable cast on, always going between two stitches, up and over. So that's how we're casting on for that method. Then we want to bind off. So in the pattern, depending on how many you've cast on, you will bind off a different number. And I just want you to do a regular bind off. Don't try to make the bind off loose. We want sort of a bigger cast on and a tighter bind off. It is the difference in size between the two sides of this little tab of knitting we are creating that forces the spiral. If the bind off is tight and the cast on is loose, then the short bind off will sort of travel one distance, and then the slightly bigger cast on will have to twist in order to adapt to that short amount of fabric. So you will bind off the number of stitches that you are told to, but pro tip, it's basically always going to be, you're going to bind off until you have only one stitch on your left needle tip. So right now I have two, so I have to bind off one more. So now I have one loop here and one loop here. I'm going to knit that stitch. So now I have two stitches on my needle. I turn them. Now we start row 2 or the next row, wherever you are in the pattern. And I'm going to purl 2 stitches. Now I need to do the cable cast on. So in order to do the cable cast on, I have to turn my work. And then I can do the cable cast on. So you would cast on however many you've been told. So the reason that you are told to turn the work on every other row is not because that's the only time you're turning your work, but that is the only time you turn your work mid-row. So you turn your work as normal, as needed other times, but you need to be told to turn the work to do the cable cast on. So now I would bind off again. Some yarns are less likely to spiral. I think that woolen spun yarns seem a little less likely. So if you have a nice round, plump, firmly spun woolen or worsted spun or other things, it is more likely to be a technique that works for you. So if you are struggling to get your spirals to spiral, check what kind of a yarn you are using. And if it is a woolen spun yarn that's sort of lofty and fluffy and not very rounded, that may be part of the problem. So I've bound off till I have only one stitch on my left needle tip. So then I will knit one. I'm going to purl 2. So I'm going to purl and purl. Then I have to turn the work and cast on using the cable cast on. So those are a few quick tips for that technique in case you've been a little confused about what's going on. I hope that helps. If your spirals aren't feeling very spirally, just give them a bit of a twist. Give them a little spritz with a plant mister or something like that, and let them sit in that twisted form. If they are really short, they will twist less, obviously, than the longer ones. They have less space to do the twisting. Anyways, I hope that helps.